There is a brand new and massive Xbox store sale that went live towards the start of this week, and there are a ton of incredible deals to grab whilst you can. Today, I wanted to do something a little bit different on the channel and actually cover 15 awesome games that are £5 or less, and they're at the lowest price points that we've ever seen. Before we do dive in though, I do obviously give a game away every single week on these sales videos. All you have to do is leave a comment below and you're automatically entered. Congratulations to last week's winner. Just hit me up over on our awesome Discord server and I will get that game right over to you. So with that, my name is Fletcher, this is Xbox Nation. What deals can you grab for a great discount this week? Well, let's find out. First up, we have one of my favourite AA games of this generation so far, and one that actually launched all the way back with the Xbox Series consoles in 2020. Chorus is a fantastic space combat shooter with a very cinematic twist, and the visual quality here on offer really out the gate is truly stunning. This one does put you in control of a character called Nara, who's an ace pilot with a haunted past, and she's also alongside her sentient ship called Forsaken. Together, you will be soaring through a stylized galaxy by completing different dogfights, drifting maneuvers and psychic abilities that add to a supernatural edge to that classic space combat. I would say if you love the likes of Everspace 2 and that's on Xbox Game Pass, then you will likely adore Chorus as much as I did. Again, this one is down to just a lovely £4.49 at 80% off, and it's a real hidden gem that I absolutely adore. Of course, it is another week and another mention of Robocop Rogue City, but this time we are seeing a rather large discount for the base game itself, and not the aforementioned Alex Murphy edition in last week's video. We are seeing an astonishing 90% off this time around, bringing the game down to just under that £5 mark, and for that price point, is a must grab for sure. Of course, this one's taking place in downtown Detroit, and you'll be blasting your way through, investigating enemies, and so much more. It really is an excellent AA experience, and I can't wait for unfinished business when that arrives next month. I highly recommend that you pick this one up in this sale if you haven't done so already. I do feel maybe it might enter Game Pass next month when a new release happens, but if you haven't tried it yet, it's well worth diving into. Risk of Rain 2 was a game that I really never had high expectations with when jumping into it about a couple of years ago now, but I was instantly hooked upon the get-go. In that time, it has easily actually become one of my favourite roguelikes, and I do understand why this was so hyped up by many within the gaming sphere. This one basically drops you and up to 3 of your friends in randomly generated arenas where you must fight hordes of different alien species, and once you've defeated a certain amount of them, a portal opens and you progress onwards. It is a fairly simple premise for sure, but the game can get incredibly complex with the amount of builds that you can make, and with the tons of items that you get given, and the lovely procedurally generated lands that you'll explore. You do also get a choice of different characters, each with their own abilities, and you will also unlock further playable characters the further you progress within the game and its story. It's one indie I will always highly recommend on this channel, and for just under a £5, it's one that I know you will get hooked on. Just don't let the art style put you off. At the Summer Games Fest a few days ago now, we got the announcement of Mortal Shell 2, and suffice to say, I know so many of you were really happy with this announcement. Well, if you did like the look of this brand new announcement, or you just like Souls-likes in general, then the first Mortal Shell is finally on sale this week, and is now only £2.50. As you can see, this is an incredibly dark and action-packed Souls-like, and the boss designs here are a real standout. The game's biggest twist though, compared to others in the Souls-like genre, is its shell system. Instead of customizing a character from scratch, you essentially possess the remains of fallen soldiers, each with their own distinct stats and abilities. It almost kind of works like a class system, which is something you don't really see often in this genre, but that's why it's such a standout for many gamers out there. For 90% off, it really is a must play, and I still can't believe how much game they're giving you for that ridiculous price point. Alan Wake Remastered brought us Remedy's cult classic psychological thriller to the modern Xbox consoles, with some lovely updated visuals, smoother performance across both of the consoles, and all the original DLC included as well, so you get the maximum value really for all of your buck. Somehow, I never actually got the chance to play the original Alan Wake back on the 360, but I did enjoy this re-release. I never actually got to play the DLC either, but I can see from doing some research for this video, it's also pretty decent, so if you want a great horror game with a very deep narrative with a low asking price, then it's certainly worth it. For me, the game really did stand out though with that sort of episodic structure, its atmospheric storytelling and moody presentation, and along with that you can combine its action and suspense in equal measure. While the gameplay does remain faithful to that 2010 original, the visual overhaul makes it such a definitive way to experience it. If you're really into your story-driven games with a supernatural edge, then this is a fantastic pickup, especially at just under £4. Wizard with a Gun is always one that did surprise me, and I was always kind of shocked how it was never one that really got much fanfare. It's a more chaotic, stylish survival roguelike where you wield magical firearms in twisted fantasy worlds. Whether that's crafting bullets that are imbued with Vice, Ire or Entropy, or just exploring the procedurally generated biomes in solo or co-op, everyone here brings some brand new surprises. It's kind of similar in a way to the previously mentioned Risk of Rain, so it's another roguelike sensation from myself. The tone here is rather quirky but very dark, blending that sort of gunslinger western vibe with a more arcane magic one in a world that is as dangerous as it is fun to explore. You will find that the real hook for this one is its crafting system, which does allow you to combine magical elements into explosive results. It's a fast-paced game for sure, but it has tons of personality. At just over £4, it offers such a great value, especially if you're a fan of co-op roguelikes and creative gameplay, and is an indie that certainly needs a little bit more love. I was really surprised by this next title, as I wasn't aware of it until making this video, but I couldn't help but purchase it myself. Upon doing a little bit more digging, Zell is a sci-fi action-adventure game that pays homage to top-down Zelda-like titles. It places you in a colourful world full of dungeons, puzzles, and then mysterious ruins. You will play as a character called Reed, an amnesiac heroine stranded on an alien planet, piecing together both her past and the world's secrets. Of course, this complete edition, which I'm highlighting today, includes all of the post-launch content and all the updates, making this the very best version available, and for £1.84, I couldn't believe my eyes. It does seem that it does lean quite heavily into that sort of classic adventure tropes, but also does look to add its own twist to it with some time-based mechanics as well. It looks to have a visually rich world that sort of blends futuristic tech with lush environments, and I really do love it. If you're looking for a short but more charming exploration-driven title with some nice little puzzles and a gentle pace, then this one might be worth grabbing for this week. Curse of the Dead Gods is an absolutely bloody wonderful, dark and challenging roguelike dungeon crawler, where every single room pushes you to make tough decisions. It's one that I will always recommend here on the channel, and as you can tell, I do love a very good roguelike. In Curse of the Dead Gods though, there is actually a pretty cool and unique mechanic. You can essentially choose to take a relic with powerful buffs but then suffer a curse, or you can just play it safe and risk missing out on some cool abilities. It's great in the way it works, as it really does harken back to that sort of risk and reward scenario. As you can probably see on the screen right now, the combat here is very tight and responsive, really drawing comparisons to the likes of the indie darling known as Hades, but with a more tactical rhythm and heavier focus on that risk versus reward mechanic. Along the way, you will of course face plenty of different traps, elite enemies and bosses in procedurally generated temples, using a mix of melee weapons, firearms and dark magic just to survive. With its slick animation and a heavy but satisfying combat loop, it really is a great pick-up for fans of punishing but rewarding action roguelikes, especially at 75% off for this week. If Chaos and Sandbox had a baby, then you'd get Just Cause 3. This game doesn't ask you to think too hard, it just hands you your grappling hook, your wingsuit, and a truckload of explosives, and points you to an island full of military outposts just begging to be blown up. I really loved Just Cause 2 back on the 360, and that was my first sort of experience with the Just Cause franchise. And number 3 was a pretty nice and welcome addition to the Xbox One generation, even though the game's still stuck at that 30 FPS mark. Of course, you will once again play as Rico Rodriguez, a one-man revolution with a serious taste for destruction, and he's returning to liberate his homeland in the most over-the-top way possible. Explosions aren't just really encouraged here, they're actually your primary strategy, as the game is centered around some massive destruction as quickly as possible. With its huge open world and ridiculous physics, you will absolutely love Just Cause 3 for its pure sandbox mayhem. It's now just under £2.50, it's almost criminal not to grab it for your Xbox library. See, I remember trying out the original Bulletstorm when it launched all the way back on the 360 as well, and it never really captured me at the time of its release. However, revisiting it late last year over the Christmas period, for me it kind of became one of those silly but more nostalgic games that you do dive into at time to time just for the stupidity. To be honest, Bulletstorm is the kind of game that looks like traditional FPS design and says, let's turn it up to 11, but still have that sort of cringy bro sort of soldiers and dialogue. It's not just about shooting enemies like Call of Duty, it's more about doing it with style, creativity, and complete disregard for subtlety. This edition does also include all of the DLC and even adds Duke Nukem as a playable character, so you can dive into that just in case it wasn't already just loud enough for you, and if you want it to be a bit more of that sort of bro dude sort of game. At just under £3, you're getting such a surprisingly smart but dumb game that knows exactly what it wants to be, and leans all the way into it, and I absolutely love it. I think I have mentioned Trials of Midguard here on the channel before, and it was always one that I really did enjoy when I first tried it out over on PS5 while it was an exclusive for a short period of time. This one is practically an online roguelike, as you and other players must join together, defend your village from mythological creatures and these sort of titans, all whilst collecting resources and gear in the world to progress further and further into the game. The combat, survival mechanics and co-op tower defense are surprisingly cohesive, and it is a real Norse flavoured experience. It's a bit of Diablo meets Valheim, but with a more stylized art direction and seasonal content that still keeps things quite fresh. I don't really know what the player count's like online these days, so maybe an experience that you have to play with your friends. I do say that, but around 6 months ago I did dive into the game myself, and there were still a few players online playing it. There's still a real satisfaction in holding off a giant with some very well placed traps, or crafting that perfect axe just in time for a final stand. Again, if you're looking for something a little bit offbeat to sink your time into, this one punches well above its price point, especially at £3.74 for this week. Set in the beautifully grim world of Kanaka, Death of an Outsider is a standalone Dishonored spin-off that trims all of the fat and lets you dive straight into the shadows. I think many of you do actually forget this game even exists, and it is a shame as it's a surprisingly solid standalone spin-off that stays true to what we love about the original games. In this one though, you play as a character named Billy Lurk, a seasoned assassin with a score to settle and some shiny new powers to experiment with. As I mentioned, the Dishonored DNA is still here, from its stealth-focused gameplay, creative tools, and the environments that do reward your curiosity. But Billy's powers, like stealing faces or freezing time to plan attacks, do feel fresh and distinct that it certainly separates it from the mainline entries. The mission design here is tight, and I quite enjoy that sort of more linear approach. I do have to say the pacing is a lot faster here as well, and the narrative is satisfyingly well contained. Whether you're a long-time fan or just brand new to this Dishonored series, it's a refined, punchy adventure that's well worth its price tag. I know I have mentioned Scars Above here on the channel before, and that was quite a little while ago now, but it is one of those games that I really did enjoy, even though it's a bit rough around the edges. I must say that at 80% off and its price tag being under just £5, it is still certainly worth it. To give you a bit more of an idea though, if you are interested, this is a third-person sci-fi action game that wears its inspirations quite proudly, that being the likes of Returnal, Souls-likes, and classic sci-fi horror. In this one, you'll play as Dr. Kate Ward, a scientist stranded on a hostile alien planet after a mysterious object crashes into Earth. Unlike most spacefaring shooters in the genre, this one does lean heavily in both the combat and the exploration departments, mixing that sort of research-based puzzles with tense survival encounters. As I mentioned before, it's not AAA polished by any means, but the atmosphere is so strong and the pacing keeps things very engaging. For just under a $5, it is a surprisingly ambitious title for anyone who enjoys exploring the unknown and facing the strange creatures that are just thrown at you. Sleeping Dogs is the kind of game that people still talk about because it shouldn't have been as good as it actually is. This is set in a vibrant open world of Hong Kong and is part undercover cop drama, part martial arts action flick, and part GTA style sandbox. In this one, you play as Wei Shen, infiltrating a brutal triad organization while juggling loyalty, justice, and survival. What does set it apart though from the likes of GTA is its fluid melee combat, and it's inspired by classic kung fu films. It's very tight, responsive, and incredibly brutal. You can add in a ton of car chases, street racing, side stories, and dim sum breaks, and you've got such an open world package that still holds up to this day, and I know so many out there still call it a GTA successor. Of course, the only current edition of this game that you can buy these days due to the sales is the Definitive Edition, and that does include all the extra DLC, plus a little nice visual upgrade that brings this 2012 sleeper hit up to modern standards. At this price point, it's criminally good, and one that you need to play in 2025. I really won't shy away from the fact that I'm a massive Lord of the Rings stan, but I'm also a very big LEGO fan. I don't want to say how many sets I've actually built over the years, but I will say that I've practically played every single LEGO game going, all the way back to LEGO Island back on the PC in the late 90s, and a big shout out if you know what that game is. That is why I will always recommend LEGO The Hobbit, as it did such an excellent job of turning the first two films of this entire trilogy into a more light-hearted, brick-breaking romp, packed with all the puzzles, platforming, and plenty of slapstick humour you kind of expect. Whether that's wandering through Erebor, braving Goblin Town, or just tossing dwarves at switches, it's all presented with that signature LEGO charm, and it's a big standout for sure. The game still has a wide range of different characters with unique abilities, and like any LEGO game, it really encourages couch co-op and exploration over intense challenges. It really is a more cozy comfort game, and for just under £4, it's a great way to wind down or play together with your family and friends. So, what game do you like the look of in this video? Do let me know down below. Also, remember to leave a comment below about anything Xbox related to be entered into a chance of winning a free game for next week's video. Do like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more Xbox news, reviews, sales videos, and so much more every single day. Whilst you're here though, why don't you check out the video on screen now, as I compared both Final Fantasy 16 on both the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S consoles. And I tell you what, if you're looking at picking up this game, it's definitely worth checking this video to see how it performs on your preferred system.